Alright, so back with another video finally. I've been interrupted by lots of people asking questions tonight, which is really good. So this is continuing with review test C from chapter 2. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit because we're going to need the room here, I think. So, nice big long equation here. 20 minus 5 times x plus 3 equals 2 times x plus 5 minus 8. Remember, all we're going to do when we've got lots of brackets here, let's expand them first of all. So this one's equivalent to, I'm going to leave the 20 alone. Negative 5 by x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. That's equal to, let's just expand this bracket on the other side. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times 5 is 10. And I've still got minus 8. Now before we try and move things around, let's just simplify each side as much as we can. It will make our lives easier. So there's a number, 20, and I'm subtracting 15. So 20 minus 15 is just 5. So now I've got 5 minus 5x on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, the 2x doesn't have anything to join up with. And 10 minus 8, well, that's just 2. So now you've got to make a decision. I've got to get my x's on the same side. Which one's bigger? Keep the bigger one where it is, bring the other one over. 2 is a bigger number than negative 5, because negative 5 is less than 0, so it's obviously smaller than 2. So I'm going to get rid of this negative 5x by adding 5x. The reason we always get rid of the... You can do it the other way. I could have subtracted 2x from each side, it'd be fine. But trying to keep the number of x's positive just makes our life easier. So if I'm getting my x's on the right, what am I going to do with this number on the right? Get rid of it. What's the opposite of adding 2? I don't want it there. Let's subtract 2. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. What do we end up with now? 5 minus 2 is 3. Negative 5x and positive 5x cancel. So 3 equals 2x plus 5x is 7x. And obviously 2 minus 2 cancel. To get x on its own, what's the opposite of multiplying by 7? Dividing by 7. So I'm going to have 3 divided by 7 equals x. What do we do again? Divided each side by 7. I'm going to go back and just put that in just to make sure you saw what was going on. Alright, next one. Oh, ugly fraction. Fraction. Something added to a fraction. We're not great with fractions. Even if we are great with fractions, we're still better with whole numbers, aren't we? So we want to try and get rid of all those fractions all in one step. How am I going to do that? Find the common denominator. Oh, it's 4. I'm going to multiply every single term by 4. If I do that, the denominators will disappear and my life will be easier. So, 4 multiplied by 3. Well, that's easy enough. That's 12. When the 4 multiplies this second fraction, the 4 on the bottom cancels with the 4 on the top. So this is 12 plus 5 outside of x plus 5. And what's that equal to? Well, on the right-hand side, the 4 down in the denominator is going to cancel with that 4 that I'm multiplying by. So that's equal to 2x plus 3. Well, now it's looking a little bit nicer. I've just got one bracket to expand here. I'm going to leave everything else the same as it is for now. 12 plus 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 5 is 25. And that's equal to 2x plus 3. Simplify on each side first, get it looking nice. So I've got 5x. 12 plus 25 is positive 37. So 5x plus 37 is equal to 2x plus 3. Now it's looking really nice. Get all my x's on one side. This time I've got more of them on the left than the right. So I'm going to get rid of those 2x on the right by subtracting them. If I do it on the right, you've got to maintain equality and do it on the left as well. So my x's are going to the left. Where do I want to send my numbers? Not on the left side. Get rid of them. So this plus 37, I've got to get rid of it. I've got to subtract 37 from each side. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. 5x minus 2x. Well, that's pretty easy. That's 3x. 37 minus 37 cancel. We knew they would. On the right-hand side, the 2x and the negative 2x have cancelled. What's 3 take away 37? Negative 34. Last step, I don't want to know what 3x is equal to, I only want to know what x is equal to. So the opposite of multiplying by 3, divide by 3, and we're going to have x equals negative 34 over 3. Remember, don't try and change it into a mixed number. That's actually going to be more useful as you go up in ages. You can still work out it's negative 11 1/3 if you're really keen, but that's the answer I want. All right, let's move on to the next questions. Inequalities. What's the only trick with inequalities? You've got it. If you multiply or divide by a negative, the sign changes. Otherwise, it's just the same as what we were doing for equations. So this first one here, what's got the least amount to do with x? Definitely that 13. So I'm going to subtract 13 from each side as my first step. Now I've got 2x on the left, and that's less than 7 minus 13 is negative 6. You're already thinking ahead, aren't you? What's the opposite of multiplying by 2? Dividing by 2. So I divide each side by 2. That's the inverse operation that will isolate the unknown, get x on its own. So x is less than negative 6 divided by 2. Well, that's just negative 3. Over here at this next one. Ooh, ugly because it's got 20x over 5. But what do you notice about 20 and 5? Yes, they share a common factor. 5 goes into 20. 5 goes into 5 once and into 20 4 times. So I can just rewrite this as 1 minus 4x is greater than or equal to 9. Now we can go ahead and solve it again. Get rid of the one that's got the least to do with my x. So I've got to subtract 1 from each side. What's going to be left on the left-hand side? Just the negative 4x. And that's greater than or equal to 9 minus 1. Well, that's 8. Opposite of multiplying by negative 4? Dividing by negative 4, dividing by negative 4. I always tend to write divided by as a fraction usually. But when I'm doing it with these inequalities, I like to do it with the division sign because just as a reminder to me that I've got to change the direction of that sign. So the negative 4s are going to cancel and I'm going to have x. I've got to change the direction of the sign because I divided by a negative. So x is less than or equal to, and 8 divided by negative 4 is negative 2. There you go. Next one here, 14 times 2x minus 3 in brackets is less than or equal to 7. What do we got to do? Let's expand that bracket. I could divide by 14, but I'm going to make a fraction. We want to try and avoid that. We know that already now, don't we? 2 14s are 28. 14 by negative 3x, negative 42x, less than or equal to 7. Oh, it's the same again. Inverse operations. You're going to do enough of these that you could do them in your sleep. Subtract 28 from each side. We've now got negative 42x is less than or equal to negative 21. What am I going to do? I'm going to divide by whatever x is being multiplied by. Okay, divide by negative 42. Look, I nearly did it as a fraction there, but I'm reminding myself to do it this way. It doesn't actually matter. I could do it as a fraction. It's just reminding me that I need to change the direction of that sign because I'm dividing by a negative. So x is actually going to be greater than or equal to negative 21 divided by negative 42. That's just a half. As long as x is bigger than a half, I'll be okay. Let's check it. If x is 10, what have I got? 2 minus 30. Oh, negative 28 by that. Yeah, that's going to be a big negative number. Of course it's going to work. Lucky last over here. This one's actually easier than the last two. No brackets to expand, no fractions. This will be a piece of cake. Where have I got more x's, on the left or the right? Hopefully you said the right. This is negative 3 on the left, positive 8 on the right. So I want to get rid of the smaller one. So the opposite of negative 3x is to add 3x to each side. That'll be the inverse operation. If I'm going to do that, I want to get rid of that negative 6. So I'm going to add 6 to each side. What does that turn my equation into? 9 and 6, 15 is greater than 11x. Oh, now I just divide by 11. That's pretty easy, this one, isn't it? It's funny that they put that in as part D. So don't give up in the exam. Sometimes an easier bit might be waiting, lurking after a challenging one. And if you get stuck on one, don't give up on the others. Make sure you keep going. What have I got now? 15 over 11 is greater than x. You can write that, of course, as x is less than 15 over 11. It's the same thing. All right, we're nearly there. Simultaneous equations. Solve the following pair of simultaneous equations to find the value of x or y. So they're saying you only need to find one, not both. This is a bit nastier. This would be like a problem-solving part C question. But the beauty is the procedure's the same, so you can do it anyway. Let's rearrange equation 1 here so that I get y on its own. So the first thing I want to do, actually we'll make it x on its own, because x is positive already over here, isn't it? Let's try and keep it positive. So I'm going to add y to each side. So now I've got 2ax equals b plus y. Oh, so to get x on its own, x equals b plus y divided by, that's 2a that it's being multiplied by, so I've got to divide by 2a. All right, what do we do with that? We say we're going to sub or replace or let x equal b plus y divided by 2a in equation number 2. And I haven't labelled it yet, so I better go back and make sure I've made it clear that's my second equation. What does equation 2 become? So therefore, equation 2 becomes negative a, and instead of x, I write b plus y divided by 2a. Here I've got plus b times y equals c. Okay, well this is multiplication here, so that negative a, which is over 1, that a can cancel with that. So I've actually got negative b plus y over 2 plus b times y equals c. Well, we've already talked about not being good with fractions. Let's multiply by 2 to get rid of all those fractions. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the first bit there is just going to be negative b plus y. It's still in brackets. I haven't got rid of that yet, so let's leave that. Plus 2 times by equals 2c. Nearly there. I can expand this negative distributive law. Negative b minus y plus 2by equals 2c. What's got the least amount to do with the y? Well, there's a y there and a y there. This one doesn't have anything to do with it. I'm going to add b to each side. Negative y plus 2b times y equals 2c plus b. Y is a common factor here, so I can take that out the front and say, how many y's have I got? Here I've got 2b, there I've got negative 1, so I could just say I've got 2b minus 1 lots of y. Now this is pretty challenging again. We talked about it in the last test as well. The factorising ones we're not going to have to do so often, so that's not too bad. What do I do now to get y on its own? I go 2c plus b, and I'm dividing by 2b minus 1. 2b take 1. That's a pretty challenging question, but you've done it, you've made it. That's really good. I'll see you in the next video when we go on to question 6. Cheers.